All right. Good day, everyone. I'm Fred Simino from ProfilProg.com. Today, I'm pleased to interview Sean Timms, founder, main songwriter, producer, and keyboard player from the Australian progressive rock band Southern Empire. First and foremost, we'd like to thank you very much for accepting the to do the interview with us. It's very much appreciated.
Pleasure. Yeah.
So we have a few questions. First of all, it's about Unitopia. The band was disbanded back in 2013. So can you tell us the reason why, first, like why did the band disbanded, and like because you've recorded like four albums with them, if I recall correctly, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you say 2013, but it doesn't feel that long ago. Um, that's like 3 years ago, and I kind of think, where's that 3 years gone? And it's just craziness. But before I do go into that, I just want to give a shout out to Patsy, our manager, who's also in Montreal. So hello, Patsy. Big hugs. So big virtual hugs for Patsy. She's wonderful. She looks after a lot of our management type stuff, works countless hours, has done for the past 7 years, and is just, I couldn't do it without her and don't want to do it without her. So yeah, she's wonderful. So just a shout out to Patsy and say hi, and we love you. So yeah, Unitopia, look, I guess some things happened which I won't go into. They were personal things. I think that there are some issues which have been documented, and if people want to kind of trawl the internet and look for them, that's fine. But I guess it was just that Mark and I were and are two very different people, and there came a point where it just ceased to work for me. He has a certain way of doing things, and I have a different way. And I could see at the time that things weren't really going to get any better. I mean, it would be like, I would either have to change to accommodate him, which then I would be left feeling resentful, or he would have to change to accommodate me, and then vice versa. So, it clearly wasn't going to work. It had worked for a long time. But when you come to the end of a relationship and you kind of go, look, I think I've had enough. I think I need to move on. And then once you make that decision, it's then made. And you do you have a new fresh lease on life, and that's what happened. So I credit Mark for being a great singer. We don't communicate very much. He'll send me an occasional message on Facebook and things like that, but I'd say we're friendly without being friends. Okay. So yeah. And I gave him, credit and thanks on the inner sleeve of the album, because I do credit him for helping to, the two of us together, starting a career or a life in the world of prog music, because, we'd always listened to it, but I'd never considered, just what could happen or how much could happen over the 17 years we were together. So, yeah, it was, a lot of it was good times, but it just ended, and it was a little bit bitter at the end. But I think things are okay now.
Okay. So from what I understand, by the time the band disbanded, you had written material. So how was the musician selection process? How did it go?
Well, I found myself with we had pretty much a double album's worth of material written. Which some of that got released on the UPF album, which was Mark's new project, and some of it has been released on the Southern Empire album, and there's still more that I wrote, and we'll be performing one of those songs live that ended up a song called Crossroads that ended up on the UPF album, and we're doing that live on our album launch show. And we've rewritten it and extended it, and it's now nearly 30 minutes long. And it was originally about 20, but we've gone a bit overboard and added some sections and things like that. Um, so the musician selection process, I guess that there were two requirements for me. I didn't want this new band or this new project to come across to any of the Unitopia fans or kind of, prog punters in general as, oh, that's Unitopia with a different singer. So I had a couple of singers in mind, and I've known Danny for many years, and he was at the top of my list, and I wasn't sure if he'd be interested or not, but I knew he had the right kind of voice for the songs that I'd written. But he also had quite a different sounding voice to Mark, and that's something that I was conscious of. And also, he's a great performer. He's had nearly 30 years performing, 3 nights a week in bands, and so he's a great performer, and he's a great guitarist as well. I wanted everyone to be able to not only play but sing as well, be really good singers and really good players, because harmonies are very important to me as well. So I approached Danny, and he was keen as. He'd gone through some personal issues, or he was going through some personal issues at the time, and he said the songs really spoke to him, and he said it's exactly what he needed at the time. So it was perfect timing for us. And then we asked a guitarist to come on board, and we quickly found that he was not going to be right. He didn't want Danny playing rhythm guitar, and he wanted to be, the guitarist. And there were some other issues there, and we sort of felt, Danny and I felt early on, and that he wasn't going to fit with the band. And I refer to it as like fitting the family photo. When you've got people on board that work, they're all part of the same family, and I think this guy was more interested in about what he wanted to do rather than what was good for the project. And so we let him go, but we'd already been auditioning for bass players and drummers, and the two standouts were Jez and Brody. Not only because they're great musicians, but they can sing really well. Jez has got a really good strong rock voice, and Brody he's just a freak. He can sing an octave higher than Freddie Mercury, and you kind of go, my goodness, he's got an incredible voice, and it's effortless, and he can play drums and sing at the same time, and which isn't easy. He's also, they're both musicians. They both play other instruments. So Jazz can play, horns, like French horn and flugelhorn and mellophone and things like that. And Brody also is a songwriter and plays guitar and keys and that. So they have their own studio set up at home. So yeah, they were the clear standouts from the auditions, and from the very first rehearsal we had, it just worked. And then, as I said, we were in search of another guitarist, and I'd heard about Cam around town, how he was the guy, and he was actually the face of the Adelaide International Guitar Festival in 2014, and he's sort of sharing the stage with the likes of Guthrie Govan, and holding his own. And I went to see him do his own show at the Guitar Festival, and I was just blown away, not only by his playing, but again, his singing, his stage presence, all of that. He's got a great voice as well. He's been singing a few jingles lately, and he has a really kind of earthy sort of voice. So if you think Sean Mullins, it's that kind of, a little bit of gravel and but really nice warm tone. But then he can scream as well, you know, so he can hit the high harmonies, which is brilliant. So that was the band, and we you know, it was complete, if you like. And as I said, I wanted to do everything as differently as possible. So I thought if we do have, you know, things like, you know, sax and percussion and stuff, we'll get in players, but they won't be part of the band. I really wanted to have a core band that, you know, that just worked and clicked. And it's great because we can talk to one another, you know, and speak to one another musically, and no one gets their nose bent out of shape. You know, no one kind of goes, well, what do you mean by that? You know, they'll kind of go, they'll think about it and they'll go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. You know, and you know, there's no ego there, which is fantastic. And you know, but everyone contributes, which is good.
And Danny sure have a great voice. Yeah.
He does. I'm rather
Yeah.
biased, you know, because he's my singer. But you know, that's one of those things that I would love to have. I can warble out a harmony or three, but you know, to have a voice like that, it's just God given. And he's he's an amazing singer, but he's also an amazing person. You know, you'll go to one of his gigs, and he sings and plays in a band called Clearway, who have been around nearly 30 years, and he works in that band with his brother Max, who plays guitar. And you go and see him at a gig, and they'll regularly, this is 2 or 3 nights a week, have anywhere up to sort of 500-600 people to their gigs. And this is a cover band, and every week, 3 nights a week. And
Covering who?
you know, sorry?
Covering who? What band?
They'll cover everyone.
Okay.
You know, everything from, you know, Pharrell Williams to Jesse's Girl to, you know, everything. And you know, I think that's what makes him such a great singer, is that he's sung so many different styles and so many different songs. They're about to do a Bowie tribute show in the next few weeks, and they've done a Queen tribute show. I did a Queen tribute show with them. He's done a Queen Zeppelin tribute show with a bunch of other musos, and I went to see him in that, and again, brilliant. And you know, but he'll get off stage, and instead of going backstage to the band room or something like that, or just, you know, having a quiet drink, he'll be out amongst the crowd, and he'll know everyone by name. You know, you're talking hundreds of people he knows, and he'll go, so-and-so, how are you? And he'll just say, you know, can I get you a drink? And da-da-da-da, so what's going on? And he remembers details about their lives, and it's other people are more important to him because he looks on them as his livelihood. He looks on them as his boss, if you like, and but that's a natural thing, and he's just a naturally likable person, as are all the guys. But yeah, Danny's just a master at that.
Awesome. You mentioned that you did not want Unitopia to sound like Southern Empire. So what are the main differences?
Look, I tried to make it as different as possible, you know, by getting a completely different group of guys. We decided to rehearse and perform and record the album live, whereas we hadn't done that with Unitopia. What we'd done is I demoed the songs, and then Matt Williams, our guitarist, would get, he has his own studio, and he would get Dave Hopgood, the drummer, to come in and lay down the drums, and he'd record the drums, and he'd record his own guitars in his own time, and then send all those files to me. I'd add, you know, bring in the bass player, add the bass. I'd already recorded most of the vocals for the demos, so adding some harmonies and things like that. You know, Timo Gang on percussion, and you know, then add saxes and flutes and things like that, and then mix it myself. But with Southern Empire, what I wanted to do is rehearse the songs, get that live feel, play them live, record them live, and then add overdubs, you know, things like, you know, woodwinds and percussion and backing vocals and things like that. And we kept, I'd say, probably 90% of what we recorded over the few days that we were tracking. And so that was one thing. That was another thing. Having obviously a different singer, having everyone in the band that could sing, whereas with Unitopia, that was really only Matt and I could do, sort of a limited amount of harmonies, but neither of us are what you'd call really strong or confident singers. So it was really Mark. And cover artwork. I talked to Ed Unitsky, who'd done our cover artwork for all our albums apart from the first one, and just said to him, look, I'm going to go in a different direction here, and he was totally understanding. But yeah, we just wanted to get a different design and a different feel for the album. Have a little bit of a harder edge to it, which I think suits the style of the guys playing and Danny's voice. And also from a publicity point of view, release information when you could back it up with something, rather than say we've got a new album coming out and it's 12 to 18 months down the track before it happens. I wanted to make sure that I managed people's expectations about what was going to happen and when it was going to happen a little more carefully than what had been done in the past. And so I think that they're probably the main things. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're going to sell it to me, what would be the bands that you would compare yourself to, like Sound and Empire, and maybe tell us about your music influences?
I guess I'd compare Southern Empire to bands like, look, there's a bit of Pink Floyd in there, there's a bit of Dream Theater, not too much, a bit of Transatlantic and Spock's Beard, a bit of IQ, but there's also other influences. I listen to a lot of jazz, and I play in another band called Supernova, and we do, things like Toto and Stevie Wonder and Tower of Power and Steely Dan and things like that. So there are influences in there that creep in, especially things like Steely Dan chord progressions and things like that. But I think probably the closest would be Transatlantic. Probably, yeah, I'd say melodically and chordally, would be Transatlantic. So in that kind of area. But again, yeah, look, my influences range from, classic progressive like Yes and Genesis and Pink Floyd and ELP and Gentle Giant, through to the more kind of pop prog like ELO and Queen and bands like that. Then going through to, I love country rock and folk and singer-songwriter, artists like James Taylor. I love Ray Montaigne. I'm a huge Prefab Sprout fan. Paddy McAloon's songwriting is just genius. Same with Paul Buchanan from the Blue Nile. There's a song off his first solo album called Midair, if you haven't heard it. It's piano and vocal, and it's just sensational. Female singer-songwriter like Sean Colvin and Kirsty MacColl. So British and American, I guess, but a big range. Supertramp, Toto, you name it. It's just so much music that I listen to. And new prog, again, Spock's Beard, IQ, Transatlantic, Dream Theater. I love all those bands. I'm probably not into the real heavy stuff, although I can listen to it, but in smaller doses.
Okay, so along with your CD, you added a DVD to it. So can you tell us what the DVD contains?
Well, what we did when we were tracking, I read a review on Prog magazine, the latest issue of Prog, which is a tribute to Keith Emerson. May he rest in peace. That was quite a shock. And there are, if you listen to How Long, there's a little bit of a Keith Emerson tip of the hat or tribute, if you like, in there, in the middle piano section. But but they've reviewed our album, and they said it's a nice, you know, accompaniment to the CD, having the band mime along to the songs. And it actually wasn't that. We recorded everything as we were tracking. So if I can set the record straight, we had 5 or 6 cameras in the studio while we were tracking. And then when we were doing overdubs in my studio, we had cameras set up there as well. So yeah, there's if there is any miming, it's a little bit, just to kind of help smooth any transitions that we didn't get. But all of the band shots, the drums, the bass, most of the guitars, a lot of the vocals and the keys were all played on the day and recorded. So yeah, it's basically four of the tracks on there, and then we edited them all together and put the mixes on, and yeah, it's just a bonus. I think people can. Also, we have a lot of overseas fans, so you know they might be waiting a little time before they get to see us live, and I think it's a good record of how we look live and what the band, I guess the image of the band, if you like. So because it's a little bit hard to tell when you're just listening to a CD, but if you whack on a DVD, it gives you a better idea. And we're still learning. We'll get it better next time. I think there's a few issues with the DVD that you kind of go, okay, well that could be improved on. But again, we did what we could with the time that we had and the budget and the equipment. But yeah, I think the next one will be even better.
Good. So from what I understand, you're already in the process of writing material for a second album. From Southern Empire. So what can we expect? Continuity or like something totally different?
I think probably a bit of both. There are tracks like Crossroads, which, as I said before, we've extended now to nearly 30 minutes, and that was on the UPF album. But we've changed that up quite a bit, because what happened is we did a demo of that track. And then Mark took the demo and gave it to Matt and the rest of the guys in the band, and they basically replicated that demo. But what I've done is sort of had the benefit of hindsight and 4 other guys in the band contributing ideas, and I think the song's fleshed out a lot more, and it's certainly a stronger piece as a result. So that's probably going to take half the album, and then I've started writing a song with Brody, a drummer, and I've written a song with Danny, and there are going to be contributions from the other guys as well. So I guess there will be continuity because everything will be, I guess, overseen, from a songwriting and production point of view by myself. But there'll be more influences and more contributions from the other guys in the band, which we never had with Unitopia. It was basically Mark and I driving it. So, Matt contributed one song, When I'm Down, off of The Garden, and that was pretty much the extent of it. David Hopgood did co-write the lyrics to Hold, and he presented them while we were in the process of demoing for the next Unitopia album that never happened. So I've credited him with writing most of those lyrics, and but that was the extent of it. Whereas everyone's really keen to jump on board and get involved in the songwriting with Southern Empire, which is great.
How healthy is progressive rock music in Australia nowadays?
Look, that's a tough question. I think there are a few progressive rock bands, but you really have to do it all yourself. We employed a publicist, a lady by the name of Jane Intini, and she does a fabulous job of helping promote our album launch. And she's got it's on the front cover of one of the local music magazines and an interview, and but as far as mainstream media, radio, print, things like that. Even community radio, that the response has been, and it quite shocked her, I think. The response has been, so what? Prog band from Adelaide, big deal. And that's kind of, apart from, that there's a very small subculture of rabid prog fans in the country. It's, the mainstream media is really not interested, and it doesn't matter how successful you are. There are bands doing really well, playing the live circuit and recording albums, and Carnival are a great band, and Toehider, Mike Mills, who heads up Toehider, is probably one of the most talented musicians I know, and he sang on the latest Darion album. And he's just brilliant, an amazing voice, amazing writer, great guitarist, yet largely unknown, certainly unknown in Australia. And you kind of think, hey, it would be nice to, to have the media get behind us a little bit. But then again, it's so, everyone's so consumed by, popular culture that there's really no room left for real talent.
Yeah.
There's my... The other thing is that we have very few venues to actually play here in Adelaide. We're doing our launch at HQ, and that will be closing by the end of next year for inner city development. We had, when I was growing up, when I was in my 20s and 30s, we probably had a dozen venues that were good size stage, good PA, good lighting, you got good crowds. Now we've got about 3, and a large part of it's the pokies. People are just, hoteliers are getting more money from the pokies, and they're not really worried about live entertainment, so they close their live rooms and put in pokies. And inner city development, and so they build, townhouses and apartments and that in the city. And their band comes along and plays in the pub next door, and then all these people that, are living right in the heart of the city ring up and complain about the noise levels because they want to get to sleep. Yet they're living in the city, and the venue gets shut down, and then they put in pokies because pokies aren't noisy. So it's been very sad over the past sort of 20 odd years, because there's, as I said, there's very few places to play. And the places that you can play, you basically have to hire the venue. So you don't get paid by the venue, you hire the venue and put on an event, and hopefully you sell enough tickets to cover costs.
Well, I was talking to Yuri Mas from Apple Smell Color the other day, and he said in Spain it's basically the same. He says you basically have to play your music acoustically, right? Just live, regular electric concerts don't work anymore.
Yeah, they don't. And look, we probably wouldn't, if it weren't for our album launch, we'd probably just be playing smaller venues and using our own PA and, things like that. So it's disappointing, but that's just the way it is. I think what's really nice about it is we can tour places like the UK and Europe and North America and have decent venues to play in, and be well received there because there's a bigger prog audience in those places. So we were amazed when Unitopia toured the UK and Europe in 2010. We had our first gig was at Summer's End on the Saturday afternoon, and we had probably 350, 400 people there. Our second gig was in de Borderay in the Netherlands, and we had about 450 people there. That's where we filmed our live DVD. And we were, we played about a year later at the Gov, which is one of our local venues, and publicised it as much as we could. We got 30 people in our hometown. And this was with 2 other bands on the bill, one of them being Toehider. As I said, Mike Mills is incredible. So we had 30 people for 3 bands, and tickets are selling well for our album launch, but it's still really hard work. You've really got to push people to get out, get off their backsides and get to the gig. Whereas it doesn't seem to be, as much of an issue overseas. So, yeah.
So I know you cannot be totally happy, but so far, are the sales up to your expectations?
I think so. I think it's hard to know what the sales are because we'll need to wait for the report from our record company. Um, but yeah, I think in general the sales are good. They said the pre-sales were very healthy and they were happy. I think the reviews overall have been very positive. And look, not everyone's going to like it, and that's fine. Hopefully, enough people like it to buy it and enjoy it. And I just feel very blessed that there are people all over the world that are buying it and enjoying it. I had a friend who lives in Canada, and he messaged me saying, just bought the album, have listened to it, and I absolutely love it. Congratulations. And so, yeah, it's it's not going to appeal to everyone, but that's fine. Nothing does. So we're just thankful that it appeals to some people, and we appreciate them as fans.
I like it.
Thank you.
What about live performance? You're launching your CD on the 22nd of May at the HQ complex in Adelaide. Sorry, I'm
Hmm.
having a hard time with that word. Uh,
No, that's
so then you'll be
you can shorten it. You can go Adelaide, Adelaide.
Adelaide, and then you'll be
That's
touring.
it. You got it.
Yeah, and then you'll be touring sometimes in 2017. So I was wondering, like, what's between now and late 2017 as far as touring?
I think to tour overseas in 2017, we really need to have our second album out. So we need to have a couple of albums under our belt. So I think once this launch is out of the way, we'll continue rehearsing reasonably regularly and writing reasonably regularly to get this new album finished and get it released, hopefully by sort of this time next year, to the view of touring maybe September, October. I'm going to go over to Summer's End Festival in September, and I'm doing a set there with Guy Manning and in a new project of his called Damanek, which has got Marek Arnold and Dan Mash in it from Seven Steps to the Green Door, and yeah, so that's an interesting project. And IQ are on the same bill, who are, Michael Holmes is our record company guy. So I'll be having a chat to him, seeing a few bands play live, and also communicating with a few venues in the UK and Europe to see if we can line some dates up in, next year. There's been talk of possibly doing a Cruise to the Edge. I think they're very receptive to it. Nothing's been signed yet, but there's talk, and of course we'd love to come over and do Rossfest as well, maybe in 2018, 2017, 2018. So yeah, I think George has heard our stuff and likes it, so fingers crossed there. Plus doing some more gigs, sporadically here in Adelaide and possibly an Australian tour, but it would have to be through a promoter who could guarantee some return on sales. So yeah.
Well, I guess we're at the end of the interview. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm on my behalf, on Profile's behalf, as well as progressive rock music fans in Quebec City. I would like to thank you for doing the interview with me, and hopefully we're going to see you live in North America very, very soon. Maybe Cruise to the Edge and maybe Quebec City afterwards.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'd love to play. I've got to say, for the benefit of all our Canadian fans, I just reckon, and I joke to Patsy, our manager, about this. I just say, and please don't take offence. I kind of go, if you live in Canada, you should be Canadan, And if you want to be called Canadian, then you should be living in Canada, I think. So for all of my Canadian friends that live in Canada, we'd love to get up there. As I said, Patsy lives in Montreal and never been to Quebec City, but I have been to Toronto. I love Toronto, so it would be nice to visit those places and tour there. And having Patsy on the ground there, it should be possible. So yes, we would love to tour
And
and maybe on the back of
you'd be allowed to play as loud as you want.
good. I think we are quite loud. Yeah, that would be good.
Awesome.
No inner city development, which is great.
All right. Well, thanks very much again, and best of luck with your current project.
No worries, Fred. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Talk soon, mate.